Hi, everyone. Lisa Haven here, and I've got a massive report I want to share with you. As you guys know, we are but days away from mega changes here in America with the election coming up in just a few days. Not to mention some crazy stuff happening with, well, CERN. But on today's broadcast, I'm going to bring on Steve Quayle. He's got tons of insight, and he is absolutely one of my favorite authors. As you know, this is the book that he compiled, I read and put together. It's amazing. But I've got tons of stuff that I want to talk about. But before I get into that, I just want to give a quick shout out to Trump Coin 2020. They right now have a gold coin there, 24 karat, that you guys can check out. All the information is in the description box below, but great Christmas gifts. All right. So Steve, are you with me over there?
I am with you, Lisa. And boy, do we have a lot to talk about. And I think I'm going to call this Dark Friday, because the coming week is going to be very, very problematic in so many different dimensions. And then this holiday season is going to be different. As we're on the air today, and you probably have seen the news that the United States is putting 700 more sanctions, actually sanctions on 700 Iranian companies. We have seen the Russians escalating their intercepts and their interference in international airspace. We've had Finland just sending a group of commandos into one of the islands to check out supposedly secret Russian bases. We've got the threat of China on our case. But more importantly, this election is going to determine the fate of the United States of America, our children, our grandchildren, and what was our once great nation is now brought out as I'm on record as saying this, President Donald Trump, God is using him as a prosecuting attorney to lift the veil off of all of the shenanigans of the evil ones. Now, it used to be that Satanism, the occult, the Luciferians, they stayed in the background, just giving hints to each other through specific dates, specific numbers, i.e. 666, i.e. 33, i.e. 72 demonic gates. The point is that now we're at this juncture where we're moving heavy artillery, MBTs, main battle tanks. We're moving howitzers. We're moving gunships, helicopter and AC-130s. Now, naturally, the military is not going to tell what they're moving down there, but I can assure you, a lot of people didn't understand what Donald Trump meant when he says, I try and tell the truth, but sometimes I can't. Let me give you that understanding so people say, well, the guy's a liar. No, he's sending a message to the American people. Because of national security, he cannot tell what he really knows. And you don't move that kind of military hardware into a situation where you've got largely, minimum firearms possession. He's going to be fighting the cartel, should they be initialized. He's going to be fighting so many integrated guerrilla forces from many nations, not just that are coming across the border with Mexico, but coming in from Canada. I don't know if you saw, Lisa, the most important story, I believe, in the Canadian-U.S. relations was on the internet towards the first of the week, where the Canadian government under Trudeau allowed the Chinese to put in very sophisticated submarine listening devices off of their west coast. Did you see that story?
Yeah.
That would be considered treason. And now you've got Trudeau welcoming ISIS, allowing Christian persecution. And by the way, I'm on record as saying I believe he has converted to Islam, and the Canadian people, you have the right to ask him if that's true. Because if you notice, every concession is being made to Muslims and every form of denial and also prosecution against Christians. So the Christian prosecution and persecution worldwide and now on our doorsteps, we're undergoing, Lisa, in my opinion, a civil war. It is not fixing to happen, as they say in the South. It's under our nose. We're seeing the full communist stripping of the charade of, quote, socialism. You're seeing the call for white race war. And I think I want to put into perspective, the South African government, I said 25 years ago when I started on talk radio, 25, 26 years ago, as goes South Africa, so goes the United States. Notice that President Trump, God bless him, was the one who stepped up to the plate and said, you're not going to kill the whites, slit their throats, and take their farms. He didn't say that, in those terms. That's what Ramaphosa intimated. He's the president of South Africa, and another gentleman that is a member of the African National Conference, and I forget his name. But what we're seeing now is that same spirit. It is an evil spirit that has transferred, from South Africa to the United States. So that's just what's going on immediately. Remember, I called Obama the entity. And remember when he got elected, all of the talismans and the occult things he had in his pocket? You can go look it up on the internet. But one of them was Hanuman. And Hanuman is a Hindu god. And the Hindus gave him a golden statue of Hanuman that was the god that was spanned heaven and earth. So, the point is that, ladies and gentlemen, you can't deny the supernatural war. We're going to be dealing with war in the heavenlies coming to the earth. We're going to be dealing with the most important election. And somebody once said, it's not he who casts the votes that counts, but it's he who counts the votes that counts. And we already know of Soros, George Soros. And even the New York Times now is trying to make him into Saint Soros instead of the traitor that he openly gave the Jews over to the Nazis. Now, isn't that funny? He's trying to be, how should I say this, exemplified or even sanitized as in sainthood. And yet, again, we're back to Saul Alinsky's rules for radicals overwhelm the target, which is President Donald Trump, with so much crap, so much false accusations. And look, God uses everybody in history. None of us are perfect. Even Noah wasn't morally perfect, but he was perfect in his generations. He wasn't genetically tampered with. Which brings me to a very important story for today, Lisa. The announcement from CERN, and this is the headline, and this is coming from one of the British papers. But here's something, here's the subhead line. Something terribly new goes bump in data, yet to be confirmed by Atlas detector. The basis of Terminated, the book I wrote, and put that up on the screen if you would, which was the subject pretty much, the transhumanism, the hybrid age, which sold out in Branson this September. And by the way, 2019 is already taking, tickets. We're selling them because people didn't believe us that it's going to sell out. So we're offering a discount. So if you link to that page, gen6.com, because it's called the Answering the Alien Question. There's so many UFOs. There's so many things happening. And it crosses just advanced technology into the supernatural evil realm. So back to this article. Before you and I started this broadcast, I said, this is the most important news that I believe is out there that I've seen in the last month, because they're looking for the God particle. CERN is, okay? They've discovered particles that theoretical physics postulated, but they're going to find what I call the Luciferian particle. Because, and you mark my words, you are going to see announcements of why these new energy forms are acting as if they have sentience. They're communicating with each other. Of course they are. And the reason they are is because machines cannot achieve spirituality without the presence of an evil spirit being in them. So understand, we've got spiritual war going on, we've got physical war going on, we've got economic war going on, we've got the persecutions of Christians around the world. We have so much going on, and people just think that somehow they're going to escape this, and they're not.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We have this normalcy bias issue, if you will, because nothing is, it seems like anyway, nothing's affecting our little circle. But in reality, when you look at the globe in a whole, there's utter chaos breaking out everywhere. Like you said, persecution, overseas of Christian, major persecution. We have white farmers getting kicked off their land in Africa. Here in America, we have China infiltrating our country. And I believe some indictments have now been issued, even Russia. And then we have tensions with the election. We have midterm coming up in just days. Trump's got his hands so full that he can't even focus on daily things like some of the censorship we have going on. They've got him running 50 million circles in order to sidetrack everything that he really needs to focus on. We have caravans with an S, headed to America here, and some already at that point. And it's no coincidence that all this stuff is happening right around midterm election. We've got people being eliminated from the internet. We have you revealing stuff that they don't want out and attempting to silence you and delist you and websites like mine. And then in the midst of it, we have things like CERN, what you just mentioned, where they're still attempting to quote unquote reach that. I'm going to call it a Luciferian particle because that's what it is. And I agree wholeheartedly. But utter chaos is absolutely breaking out.
Well, and I think people have got to understand something that it is, and I thank you for making that statement, it is going to affect everyone. I talked to a gentleman, by the way, in Texas, who's one of the smartest, sophisticated investors, very successful, and he called me, I think maybe, I said it on Sheila Zielinski's show, about an hour before I went on the air, literally, and we finished it minutes before I went on the air. And he's talking about, and this guy knows what he's doing with a history. He's talking about the stock market's going to rally in one day, but we're going to have a week of black days. And that happened, I think, in 2006, 2008. And I'm sorry, I'm not a technical trader. We know it happened in 2008, the stock market crash. But imagine there's something more going on. There's something going on with the banking of the world, the liquidity. You're probably seeing, Lisa, reading articles where money in circulation, they're making it easy, again, for people to buy homes that can't afford them. Yet the sheer availability of funds, meaning cash, available to the small businessmen and everything, is drying up. So we've got a liquidity crisis, we've got a derivatives crisis, and I believe that the only way for America to get out from under this is for Donald Trump to have to declare the equivalent of a biblical jubilee where all debts are canceled, including student debts and the students that are being manipulated like puppets on a string. Not all of them, but most of them. So now we have communism as the headline of the day, along, of course, with cannibalism. And we have the volcanic activity worldwide going off that's going to affect the growing seasons. Look at the weather. So back again, prior to Branson, I said it months before Branson, and I said it during Branson. Everything changes after September 15th, not because it was a conference date, though it was. And I said the word normal will no longer apply. Yep. Watch that play out. Again, I'm going to say it one more time. Watch that word. That the word normal will no longer apply, and apply it to what's going on in your own life, apply it to what's going on in the country, and apply it. Would you ever think you would see communists, open communists, calling for the physical overthrow of the United States of America, calling for the death of the President of the United States, Hollywood and all of its satanic spawn, call it what it is, the Me Too movement driving men away from women, and then the progenitors of sex with robots. And by the way, I wrote a book years ago, 20 years ago, I think it was started, a Genetic Armageddon, Today's Technology, Tomorrow's Monsters. Remember, birth control is the end game of Margaret Sanger. And isn't it interesting? Margaret Sanger wanted the destruction of all black people, and Hillary Clinton just made the statement that Margaret Sanger is one of her all-time idols. So I believe that the whole Blexit movement, B-L-E-X-I-T, the black exit from the Democratic Party, is, I believe God is getting the attention of his people, black, white, brown, Latinos, and I'm going to make a plea to everybody out there. If you're a believer in Jesus Christ, don't get sucked up into the hate movement. Go to your Bible and say, Lord, what should I do? Civil war is coming to this country. Civil war is in the land. And when I got people telling me, and by the way, living in talk radio, if I tried to add up all the threats I've received against myself, my family, and literal operations, most of your listeners and my listeners simply won't believe it. But the point I'm trying to make is this. When you have Nancy, I hate to even say her name, Pelosi, and I haven't come up with a cute name for her, and maybe Michael Savage has got a great name for her. Do you have a name for Nancy Pelosi? Calling basically white Republicans Collateral damage, ladies and gentlemen, is a military term. That simply means we're going to carry out a military operation to destroy, quote unquote, all Republicans, all conservatives, but mostly white people, to bring about our, democratic hell on earth.
Well, and Don Lemon recently, I put out a tweet, but he has some serious issues because he said, and I'm going to quote, "White people are a threat to this country. Something has to be done about it." And that's just pure evil, in my opinion. That's racism. Bottom line. And, but they're really painting this picture, and it's just getting crazy. There's lib speak now where they literally take the things that we as conservatives or Christians or nationalists mean. An example would be we're against illegal immigration. We're all for doing it legally, right? But illegal immigration, it does not, in lib language, it means that we are racist against Hispanics. In real language, and what we mean by it is no, we're against the criminality that it brings, the improper vetting. We're all for doing it the right way. It has nothing to do with color. And that's what they've done with all political issues. They've switched if you're pro-life, then all of a sudden you're against women and feminists. One has nothing to do with the other. And I did a whole report on that, and you shared it on your webpage. And I encourage people, go to stevequayle.com, check out his alerts, get his book. Amazing book, by the way, Terminated there, and go to Branson. I'm planning on at least coming as a bystander this year and listening and getting some interviews with you guys. But kind of that aside, what you brought up Civil War, you brought up midterm election, and just your opinion. How do you think the midterm elections are going to play out in days? What should we expect?
Well, first of all, I'm praying that the believing Christians who are repenting, calling on God, and yet, I'm telling you this, the war is in the Christian, quote, professing community too, because a lot of Christians, there's even buses going around telling Christians not to vote for Donald Trump, and they're literally saying, we serve a different Jesus. You most certainly do. Remember, the word antichrist means in place of Jesus Christ. It doesn't just mean anti as against. It means in place of or inserted. The war on Christians is going to take place literally in households, the household of faith, and the attack on the houses of faith. And you're going to see God basically starting to separate the wheat from the tares. So there's going to be war. I wrote the introduction to one of the most important books Tom Horn ever wrote. And I want to encourage all your listeners to go on skywatchtv.com. It's that important, Lisa. It's called Blood, what is it? I'm sorry, forgive me. I just phased on you. I was going to say Blood in the Streets, but that's not it. And you can look it up. I'll send you the link. I apologize. I just went, my brain works so fast, my mouth can't keep up. Blood on the Altar. Okay.
There you go.
Tom Horn's book, Blood on the Altar. There's a war going on within Christendom. There's a war going on in the Catholic Church. And by the way, one of the first things I ever said on talk radio, I think it's 26 years ago now, is the fact that you will see war in the Catholic Church between traditional Catholics and the new Marxist theology of, there's a word for Catholicism where they're getting involved in politics. I forget that too. But the point is, and I said it will turn into a shooting war. Mark my words, ladies and gentlemen. You know what's the problem, Lisa? There's so many voices on the internet, yours, mine, and so many, but people have got to learn that they have to have a standard to judge things by. And that standard in my world is the Bible. Isn't it fascinating that you brought up Don Lemon? I got news for you. As much as that guy gets, I better know, as much as he hates white people, he is part of the LGBTQ. I don't even know if those things are in order. And it's fascinating how much of that movement is, again, against, quote unquote, God. You cannot mention. In Canada, you can go to jail for mentioning Jesus Christ. You can go to jail for even speaking out on the biblical position against same-sex marriage. Here's the bottom line. Every barrier that God created in the book of Genesis, in the animal world, in the physical world, in the spiritual world, has been breached. And breach means it's opening. So when Jesus said the gates of hell, mark these words, this year, 2019, will be the year of such supernatural evil manifestations that are visible that you will be getting. What do I do, Lisa? What do I do? People on talk radio who have stood, and by the grace of God, we're still standing. I don't know how much they've cut you on YouTube, but my entire search engine is down 50% from last year. Yeah. And, we can all check our specs. So our voices, ladies and gentlemen, will go silent. But please pray about, if our voices go silent, take what Lisa has warned you about. Take what I have warned you about. Take what Alex has warned you about. Hawk, all the talk radio. Dave Hodges is relevant for this time. I'm telling you point blank. He gets a lot of crap, okay? So do I. Same people give him crap, give me crap.
Ditto.
But just to validate that I'm hearing from real people, one of my sources, who's an active DHS SWAT team commander, spoke to Dave Hodges, Common Sense, for 90 minutes, and I put him in contact with Dave. So there can be multiple witnesses, but I'm telling you this, the evidence is overwhelming. This country is going to deal not just with border crises and invading armies. They're going to deal with great terror and guerrilla warfare by every nation, whether it's North Korea, China, Russia, Cuba, Iran. All of the different nations that hate our guts are going to activate their sleeper cells. And I don't know if, they do it all at once or it will be a progressive thing, but that's what people need to prepare for.
And I believe we're in, there's a lot of civil tensions being brewed as well. We have the left constantly harassing the right and then parading as the victim. Like they keep, it's a art of war tactic, if you will, but they're doing that and it's increasing tensions between the two sides. And I think that's all part of the plan, to make themselves look bad and so they can win the election, so they can get where they need to go. And they're literally painting us as demonic, evil people. Just simply for being Republican, you're automatically a racist. And that's the idea they're painting to people today.
When someone accuses you of being a racist, I'm speaking to your audience, my audience, the audience that will see this all over the world. Tell them, no, you're just a historic realist. And that's why all history has been robbed from the American school children and the European school children. Because if you divorce a nation from its roots and how it came to be, you can give them total insanity and make-believe. And that's what I was complaining about in virtual reality. By the way, Hugo de Garis, again, one of the main keynote speakers at our 2018 conference in Branson, Missouri, the inventor of the artificial brain, one of the three guys, probably one of the most well-spoken. If you were to ask me what is the most profound speaker I have listened to in the last half a dozen years, it was Hugo de Garis, and you can order those tapes on gen6.com. A remarkable man, non-Christian, but he said, Lisa, if we don't deal with AI, artificial intelligence, I call it Antichrist intelligence, it will destroy mankind. Now that's coming from a non-biblical perspective. The title of my book, can you read the title on the tombstones?
Yeah. Rip, here lies the human race who refuses to recognize, rip their end when it stared them in the face.
Yeah, they refused to recognize their end when it stared them in the face. So the first speaker was Hugo de Garis at, again, the True Legends, Transhumanism, and Hybrid Age Conference. My presentation in Saturday afternoon was the same thing. But see, because I'm, quote, a Dr. Doom or a fear porn purveyor or I'm a liar, I never write, blah, 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 blah. But the point is, I had no communication with Hugo de Garis with the exception of one email to say, here's where your ticket is, blah, blah, blah. And we arrived at the same conclusion. And I think that was God's cool factor. I mean, I don't mean to make the Lord trivialize, but he was making sure people understand that here's one of the smartest men in the world coming to the same conclusion that someone who's basing my research on the Word of God. Jesus said this, ladies and gentlemen, except he shortened the days for the elect's sake, there would be no flesh left alive. Yep. And for the elect's sake, these days are being shortened. Lisa, think back 1 year from today. Look at where it went. It's like a vapor. Look at your children. Man, I look at my children and number one, I weep when I see their future. Yes. If I don't do something, and you look and say the same thing.
Yeah, I do. And that's one reason I do what I do today and you do what you do today, in hopes of our children and our grandchildren have a lot better life. And they are so inundated with technology. It's terrifying. And you were bringing up some of the technological heads and people who created technology. They are scared to death. Pretty much, I don't know, 80% of them always talk about takeover of machine, warning of AI threats. And Christian or non-Christian, they all say the same vibe. And we really have to sit back and think about that. And then when we think about what cell phones have done to our children, they're literally glued, like your modern day zombie, to a phone, and they have panic attacks if their phones are taken away. And then you think of what some of the Apple guy, who I'm blanking now, but he doesn't even let his children have access to the phones in which he created. I mean, that says a lot. Well, in conclusion, Steve, do you have any last thoughts? And then share, if people want to follow you on YouTube, where can they do that? Your website and your book information as well.
Sure. First of all, they can go to stevequayle.com for all of my books and my headlines. And Lisa, for the last several years, I've been posting 18 hours through the day. That's why my eyes, someone said, you look like you're tired all the time. The word sleep is not in my vocabulary. The word warning is. And one of the things that I want to share people, really important, is what I've written. Terminated is probably the finale of what I have written to bring everybody to the most important point in their life. If they don't understand transhumanism, they don't understand hybrids, and they don't understand the hybrid age, we're now in a position where animal and human DNA is being combined. That's what destroyed the mythological, which I believe were real, like Atlantis, Hyperborea, Ultima Thule, all of the Shambhala. These were civilizations of angels, not human beings, that God destroyed when they started mixing his creation. And now look at this. We've got, again, Jesus said, nation will rise against nation. So I want people to go to Gen6, GENSIX.com, and sign up early. They get a $25 discount for the 2019 conference. And I want to make this clear. I've never said it. This is the first time. I personally, now maybe I don't know what that means in my life, but I hope there are more conferences. But because of the titles, we don't pick these titles just quote unquote out of thin air, but they're very important titles. It's answering the alien question, both from the aliens created us, the Zecharia Sitchin position, the Ancient Aliens television program, to the biblical position of fallen angels, giants, and demons. And so, I've dedicated my life. I'm 67, so the majority of it is 46 years to research. And what I want people to understand is that if the Bible says his people, God's people, are destroyed for lack of knowledge, then the opposite is true. They're preserved with the correct knowledge. But what is that knowledge based on? We are in a civil war. We are in a spiritual war. The coming months will prove we're in a financial war. And people need to prep. And I want to make this claim. Biblical preparation from Noah to the time of Joseph, because he interpreted Pharaoh's dream. But the most amazing New Testament prepper was the mother of the little boy that had the bread, the loaves of bread and fishes on the Mount of Transfiguration, on the, on the Sermon on the Mount, where Jesus was speaking to the 5,000. That mother had the attitude that she didn't know how long her son might be gone, but she wanted to make sure, because she was a loving mother, that her son wouldn't starve. And because one prepper mother prepared her single son, Jesus took what she had done and was a blessing by feeding everyone. So it's not a lack of faith. It's not a lack of faith to prepare. It is a lack of biblical precedent, and it's a lack of faith for those who don't prepare. Because King David said, save me from the sin of presumption. It is going to get bad. Imagine most people not being able to go to, quote unquote, I don't drink coffee, so people that do, I'm not picking on anybody, but I see people people buying coffee with credit cards so they can get their points. Everything we do is being monitored. When people were told that the television screen, telepresence, that they're watching it. You remember how many people threw a fit about that? Now our cell phones are tracking, but the Faces of Death book, and I want to make this clear, I don't post on Facebook, but I have a Rhonda, my, if you will, social media director that watches, because there were, I don't know, there were literally 1,400 posts claiming they were me. They weren't, okay? They were clipping me, so I have to have a monitored Facebook account. I'm not on Twitter. And the thing is when I said Faces of Death book, tie that in to the Chinese social monitoring credits, and now what we're seeing on facial recognition at the airports. Lisa, this is beyond an Orwellian hell. This is the beast system. And in my book, I make the case, you read it, that the world leaders will give their power, meaning their authority and their finances, unto a technological entity that will be demon-possessed, and that will have the control over all the world. But I want to tell Christians, this is not hopeless. This is God warning you, because, again, Jesus said that he gives us power to tread on serpents and scorpions and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall by any means hurt you. I know some of the toughest guys that died, not because they weren't the best fighters, street fighters, knife fighters, best snipers, but because a little bug they picked up in some foreign field or inoculation took their life prematurely. It is not within our strength to deliver us. There's no place in the Old or New Testament where without God's help, the people of God ever won a victory. With God's help, the victory is ours. But people have got to man up, stand up. When I say man up, thank you for what you do, Lisa, because you've been a voice out there. And quite candidly, I would say this, the most prominent voice speaking from a female position, and you can see the big picture. But remember, people who live in virtual reality, video games, and their cell phones are divorced from historic reality. Therefore, you can get them to believe anything. And by the way, when you're ready to die in the real world, there is no reset button.
Right. I agree wholeheartedly. And I think those were amazing points. And 100% I'm with you. Well, if you guys want to follow Quayle, make sure you check out his website at stevequayle.com. Get his book, Terminated. This thing is amazing. I've read it. That's why I have it. And I've even recommended it in past videos. And I get nothing for that. I'm just simply telling you guys that it's an amazing book. And hopefully I will be there in Branson. I am 90% sure I am going to go this year. I'm so excited because like I said, Steve, you're one of my favorite authors, writers. I believe I own every book you've written. So thank you. But anyhow, thanks again for tuning into the broadcast here. All the information can be found below. And I'm Lisa Haven, and that was Steve Quayle signing out.